Feed, build, and expand a dungeon of your very own, and destroy anyone foolish enough to venture into it. Dungeon Heart is a 2D top-down mobile game in which the player builds and populates a dungeon of their very own. The player does this by accumulating 3 resources: life energy, gold, and knowledge points, and spends them to purchase rooms to place on a grid surrounding their dungeon heart. In this diagram, you can see a player selecting which room they want, placing it where they want, and spending the gold to place it. Players can then fill these rooms with monsters and traps that will slowly generate resources for the player over time. These creatures and traps also serve another purpose, as defenders. As the player's dungeon becomes larger, it will begin to become invaded by adventurers. These adventurers will begin to trickle in one at a time every 5 minutes and will start out as the weakest of 3 types of adventurers. But as the player's dungeon gets bigger and stronger, there will be a larger amount of adventurers every 5 minutes that will be intermixed with all 3 types of adventurers. Though this is not entirely a bad thing, as every time an adventurer is killed by traps and creatures of the dungeon, the player is given a boost to all 3 resources, allowing them to become stronger and larger faster. In this diagram, you can see an adventurer is attacking the dungeon in number 1. He moves into the second room and kills the zombies, so the player reacts, grabbing a skeleton and moving it in to combat the adventurer. It then destroys the adventurer, and you can see that the player is given a boost in every resource. They can also use these resources to strengthen their already existing traps and creatures by upgrading them. Each creature and trap can be upgraded 3 times to increase its attack speed, damage, and health. You can see here that there's not only a cosmetic change when upgrading creatures, but also a stat increase. If the player's dungeon is not strong enough to kill the adventurers before they make it to the heart, then the adventurers will attack it until they are either killed or destroy it. This will cause the player's dungeon to shut down for 2 IRL hours in order to wait for it to be repaired. The player can alternatively spend stockpiled resources to speed up the repairing process. The theme of the game is based in a fantasy-like D&D setting, which will give the player the choice to build 10 different creatures, 3 different traps, and 5 different aesthetic skins that can be placed on rooms. The primary goal of the game is to protect your dungeon heart for as long as you can, while also building the coolest and biggest dungeon the player desires. This game shares similarities between games like Farmville and Dungeon Keeper, with a mix of satisfaction that comes with building a large base like in Farmville, and the stimulation of constantly fighting approaching enemies like in Dungeon Keeper. This project does seem a bit ambitious, but the main reason for this lies in the asset creation, as most of the mechanical elements can be achieved with skills we have acquired throughout this program. As seen in previous diagrams, the assets created will be very minimal and require very little animations. This will allow the team to focus more on the mechanical and balancing side of the game. Thank you for your time, and I hope you consider supporting this pitch.